Hi guys, you're inside a medieval castle in the dead of winter, and the cold is so deep it feels alive. No insulation, no heating, no glass windows, just stone, frost, and a bed that traps more cold than warmth. So, how did anyone survive a single night? The truth is, castles were masterpieces of defense, but disasters for comfort. Every wall was stone, every draught was a silent intruder, and every winter night tested the strength of those who lived inside. But somehow, despite the wind slipping through arrow slits, despite rooms that hovered just above freezing, despite the long, brutal hours when even breath turned to mist, they slept. They adapted. They learned the quiet secrets of warmth in a world designed to be cold. Tonight, you will step into their world. You will walk the frozen corridors, feel the weight of wool and fur on your shoulders, hear the last crackle of a dying hearth, and experience how people endured nights that would chill us to the bone today. Before we begin, if you're listening, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. I love seeing all the time zones gathering here to unwind. Now, settle in. Let the cold become part of the story, not your body, and let the slow, ancient rhythm of medieval life guide you into a deep, peaceful sleep. This is how people slept in medieval castles without freezing to death. Now, imagine. You move slowly down a long stone corridor, each step steady and deliberate, the sound of your footsteps rising and then fading into the vast, hollow distance. The air is sharp enough to sting the tip of your nose, and when you inhale, the cold settles deep inside your chest, not painfully, but with a quiet clarity, as if the castle itself is drawing you into its stillness. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders, gathering the wool close to your neck. Your breath drifts out in soft, pale clouds, hanging in the air for a moment before disappearing into the shadows. The torchlight nearby flickers weakly, its flame bending and shivering each time a draft slips through the hallway's cracks. Even wrapped in layers, you can feel how the cold has crept into every stone around you. Old, ancient cold, the kind that has lived here far longer than you. The walls stretch high above your head, disappearing into shadow, and the corridor ahead narrows gently into darkness. You feel the weight of the castle around you, the massive stones, the echoing emptiness, the sense that countless winters have passed through these halls before you, each leaving behind another quiet layer of chill. Your fingers brush the rough wall as you walk, the stone icy and coarse under your touch. It feels timeless, as though the cold is a memory the castle refuses to let go of. Outside, the winter wind howls across the battlements, but in here, the cold is different, deeper, slower, patient. At night, it settles in the corridors like a living presence. You pause near a narrow window slit, only a hand's width wide, and peer out into the night. Snow drifts down in gentle, quiet flakes, swirling past the stonework before sinking into the darkness below. A faint moon glows through the clouds, its pale light barely reaching the floor inside. You breathe in slowly, your breath shaking just a little before steadying again. The castle is silent, but it's not unfriendly. It simply rests, as you do, waiting for morning. You let your shoulders relax beneath your cloak. There is something comforting about the quiet here, something ancient and steady. You continue down the corridor, and the torches burn lower with each step. Their orange glow shimmers across the stone, painting long shadows behind you. Your footsteps echo softer now, as if the castle is growing heavier with sleep. You move deeper into the hallway, surrounded by darkness, cold, and the faint hum of winter wind moving through old stone. Your breath, your heartbeat, your quiet steps, they all become part of the castle's slow, calming rhythm. And as you walk, you realize the cold is no longer an intruder. It is simply part of the night, part of the castle, part of you. The frozen corridor stretches onward, but you walk it with calm, steady ease, letting the winter silence settle around your shoulders like another layer of your cloak. The night is long, but peaceful, and you continue onward, gently, patiently, into the heart of the castle. You stop for a moment in the corridor, letting your hand rest on the stone wall. It feels colder now that you are standing still, cold enough that the chill seeps slowly through your glove, settling against your skin with a quiet, steady persistence. The castle doesn't simply feel cold, it keeps cold. It holds it, stores it, breathes it. And the longer you stand here, the more you realize that this isn't an accident. It isn't a flaw. It is simply the nature of castles, designed not for comfort, but for survival, in another sense entirely. Castles were built as fortresses first. Homes were a distant second. You take a slow breath, letting it ease from your lungs in a pale cloud. The truth of medieval castle life rests heavily in the air around you. These walls protected you from arrows, sieges, invaders, but against winter, they offered almost nothing. Stone is strong, but it is merciless. It absorbs the cold and releases it back into the air in long, slow waves, as though the walls themselves exhaled winter. You run your fingertips across the surface again. The stones are rough, uneven, fitted together without the luxury of modern insulation. Just mortar and weight. You can feel the gaps in some places, thin hairline fractures where the wind has been slipping through for centuries. No medieval builder could stop the cold completely. Not here. Not in a fortress meant to endure sieges. Not climate. You begin walking again, footsteps slow and muted. A torch ahead sputters in a small, frustrated burst, as if trying to warn you. There is no way to banish winter here, only to soften it, and you know it's true. Castles were cold, for many reasons. Their walls were impossibly thick, sometimes 12 feet or more, good for defending against battering rams and catapults, terrible for retaining heat. Stone conducts cold inward, pulls warmth outward, and holds on to winter long after the season has passed. In summer, this was a blessing. In winter, a quiet hardship everyone simply learned to live with. You pass by another narrow window slit, an arrow loop carved into the stone. Barely a hand's width wide, yet still enough for the night air to seep through. On windy days, these slits wailed like pipes, turning the castle into an instrument played by winter itself. Most windows didn't have glass, not at this time. Glass was expensive, fragile, and rarely used except in chapels or the private rooms of royalty. Instead, people relied on wooden shutters or sometimes stretched pieces of oiled cloth or parchment across openings. Enough to dim the draught, yes, but never enough to stop it. The cold always found a way inside. You pause again as a faint breeze brushes your cheek, light but unmistakably chilly. It must have slipped through one of the arrow slits, or perhaps through a crack between stones worn down by centuries of frost and thaw. For a moment, you imagine how many winters these halls have endured. How many generations walk these corridors just as you do now. cloak drawn tight, shoulders hunched slightly, waiting for the warmth of the nearest hearth. Because fire helped, of course. But even fire struggled in a place like this. You picture one of the great hearths inside the castle's main hall. Massive, roaring, devouring entire logs, the thickness of your arm. And even then, even with flames that reached as high as a man's shoulders, the warmth barely spread across a portion of the room. 5 feet from the fire, you might feel heat. 10 feet, and it dwindled into a soft glow. 20 feet, and the air turned cold again, as if the flames were nothing but a memory. A large chamber could take hours to warm. And even then, the heat pooled low to the ground, drifting only inches upward before being swallowed by the high, vaulted ceilings. Most of the room stayed in shadow, in cold. The warmth hugged the hearth and refused to travel further. This was the truth of castle living. Heat was precious, and cold was constant. You continue walking, the corridor bending slightly to the left. The stones overhead are supported by heavy arches, their curves disappearing into darkness. The architecture feels impressive, but also oppressive. It is the architecture of defense, not comfort. Your boots crunch faintly on the ground as frost begins forming on the edges of the floor, where the cold leaks in most. Your hand brushes your cloak, feeling how the wool has become stiff from the low temperature. You think of everyone who once lived here: servants, guards, nobles, visiting travelers. They all endured the same cold, not because they wanted to, but because it was part of the castle's nature, part of life. And then you remember the stories. How nobility often slept in small chambers, not because they desired privacy, but because a small room was easier to warm. How tapestries were hung along walls, not only for decoration, but as insulation, fabric barriers against stone's chilling breath. How beds were curtained, not for elegance, but to trap body heat in a small pocket of air. How people slept in layers of linen and wool, sometimes even fur, with warm bricks wrapped in cloth placed beneath their feet. And still, it was cold. You picture those who stood guard on the battlements through the worst nights of winter, their cloaks snapping in the wind, their hands wrapped tightly around spears or torches, their faces numb, eyes watering from the sting of the night air. You pass a small alcove, noticing a wooden bench near the wall. Someone must have used it once to rest briefly before continuing their duties. You sit for a moment, drawing your cloak around your knees. The stone underneath you is hard and unyielding. It feels as though it's been holding winter inside it for centuries, compressing it into a silent, unmoving weight. And yet, somehow, it calms you. The cold doesn't rush. It doesn't bite with violence. It simply rests, just like you. People who lived in castles understood this. They accepted the cold the way one accepts the cycle of day and night. It was neither enemy nor friend, just another part of their world. In fact, the cold served a purpose. The castle's chill preserved food stored in upper chambers. It kept pests away in winter. It meant fires were tended constantly, providing routine and rhythm to the household. It reminded everyone how precious warmth truly was. And warmth, in a place like this, was something shared, gathered around hearths, wrapped in blankets, passed from person to person through closeness. You rise from the bench and begin walking again, the corridor narrowing as you move deeper into the castle's interior. Your thoughts linger on those who built this fortress, how they carved stone from cliffs, shaped it, fitted it, raised it into walls, meant to withstand war. They were not thinking of warmth when they built these halls. They were thinking of arrows, battering rams, sieges, fire, and defense. In a world where danger often came from outside, comfort was secondary to strength. And so the walls remained thick, the windows remained narrow, the cold remained constant. You exhale gently, breath drifting upward. You begin to feel the shape of castle life. Not just the architecture, but the rhythm, the atmosphere, the quiet acceptance each winter brought. You pass another torch, its flame fluttering softly. The tiny pool of warm light casts long shadows behind you, stretching toward the deeper darkness, where the corridor fades. And yet, you do not feel lost. You feel steady, grounded, connected to those who once walked this same path. People who endured nights far colder than this one, without modern comforts, without central heating, without anything but stone, fire, wool, and will. You continue on, and with each step, the castle reveals a truth that feels both ancient and strangely comforting. Cold was never something to fear here. It was simply part of the castle's breath, part of its nature, part of life. The cold settled into the stones long ago, and now, as you walk through the dark corridor, it settles gently around you too. Soft, steady, and familiar. You breathe in, you breathe out, and the castle breathes with you. You push the wooden door inward, feeling its weight shift with a slow groan, and step into your chamber. The cold inside greets you instantly. Quiet, unmoving, patient. It does not rush toward you like a gust of wind. It simply exists, held inside these thick stone walls the same way air is held inside a sealed jar. Your breath floats in front of you in a pale mist. For a moment, it seems to linger, suspended in the stillness, before fading softly into the shadows. Your fingers tighten around the small candle you carry, and its light moves with you, a gentle glow weaving across the chamber's rough surfaces. The room is modest even by castle standards. A narrow chamber carved into the inner thickness of the wall itself, built more for practicality than comfort. The stone curves in slight, uneven lines, the craftsmanship ancient, the marks of chisels and time still visible. Every part of the room feels as though it has lived many winters, endured countless nights colder than this one. Your footsteps fall softly on the hardened floor. The surface beneath you is covered with flattened rushes mixed with dried herbs, lavender, meadowsweet, and mint, placed here to soften scents and offer a bit of comfort. The herbs have long since dried. Their fragrance lingers only faintly, rising as your boot brushes lightly across them. It is a soft smell, calming, something familiar that reminds you of quiet evenings long before the cold arrived. The candle flame shivers gently as you move deeper inside. It casts long, wavering shadows that stretch themselves across the stone, bending and curling like thin fingers reaching toward the warmth. This room, like every room in the castle, holds darkness easily. Light must fight for its place here. Your bed waits against the far wall, pressed into a shallow alcove where the stone curves inward. A wooden frame supports it, solid, sturdy, carved with simple designs near the headboard. 4 tall posts rise up from the corners, supporting the heavy curtains that surround it. The curtains are thick wool, dyed a deep, muted brown. They look heavy enough to block a small wind, heavy enough to trap warmth close to the body, They hang partly open, one side drawn back as though someone slipped out only moments ago, even though you know it has stood this way since morning. You cross the room slowly, each step deliberate and unhurried. Castle corridors are cold, yes, but sleeping chambers hold a different kind of cold. A quieter cold. A personal cold. Here, the chill settles not on stone alone, but on your possessions, on your blankets, on the small chest beneath the window, on the wool cloak tossed across the stool. Your things have grown cold with the room, as if winter has gently claimed them and now lends them back to you. You set the candle down on the wooden table beside the bed. Its flame brightens slightly, relieved to stand still. The shadows pull back a little, revealing more of the chamber. A wooden chair rests near the hearth. A small hearth, barely large enough to warm a corner of the room. No fire burns there now. Only a bed of cold ash remains from earlier in the day, grey and soft, like powdered stone. You kneel for a moment, brushing your fingertips against the edge of the hearth, feeling the chill that clings to it. Later, before sleep, you'll coax a new flame to life here, gently feeding it until it glows warm enough to take the edge off the night. But even then, you know the warmth won't travel far. A single fire in a small chamber like this warms only the air closest to it. The rest of the room remains cool, a sleeping companion that refuses to leave. You rise, letting your hands glide along the edge of the bed frame. The wood is cold at first touch, but your palms warm it slightly as you move. You pull the curtains aside just a little and run your hand across the wool blankets. They are thick, rough, and comforting, woven by hand, each thread heavier than the next. These blankets have been your closest shield against winter nights. Their weight alone has kept you warm on mornings when the air felt colder than the water of a mountain spring. The wool holds the faint scent of lanolin, earthy and familiar. You press your palm into the top layer, feeling the resistance, the density, the slight scratch of natural fibers. This is not softness by modern standards. It is the softness of survival, the kind that keeps warmth close to the body and holds it there. You lift one of the blankets and let it fall back into place. The sound it makes is gentle, like a quiet sigh, settling over the bed. The cold is easier to face, knowing warmth waits beneath the layers. You sit down slowly on the edge of the bed. The mattress is made of tightly packed straw, tucked into a linen tick. It gives under your weight with a soft whispering sound, adjusting to your shape. The straw shifts slightly, releasing a faint scent of earth, dried fields, and stored sunlight from months ago. The bed creaks quietly, a familiar sound, a sound that belongs to this chamber, to this castle, to every winter that has passed within these walls. You let your shoulders relax, your muscles loosen, the tension in your neck releases just a little. The chamber is cold, but it is your cold. A cold you understand. A cold you have lived with each winter. A cold that brings with it an odd sort of peace. You glance toward the narrow window slit built into the far wall. Frost frames its edges like delicate white lace. The shutter is closed, secured with a wooden bar, but even through the sealed wood, you can feel the faint thrum of wind pressing against the outside world. A soft tapping sound. Winter's fingertips brushing against the shutters. Echoes gently through the chamber. Once, long ago, you might have found the sound unsettling. Now it simply reminds you that the castle stands firm. The walls hold, The shutters endure, and so do you. Your cloak hangs from a wooden peg near the door, stiff with the cold, waiting for the warmth of your body to soften its fibres again. A pair of leather shoes rest neatly beneath the stool, their edges dusted lightly with dried mud from earlier in the day. Your possessions are simple, but every one of them holds stories. Days of work, nights of cold, mornings of quiet resilience. You draw the curtains of the bed open a little wider and look inside. The space feels like its own world, small, enclosed, warm in potential. The curtains create a cocoon, trapping your breath, your warmth, your quiet presence. Inside the bed, the cold loosens its grip on the air more quickly, softened by the layers of blankets, the straw mattress beneath, and the small warmth from your own body once you settle in. You run your fingers along the wool one more time. Cold now, warm soon. Your candle flame flickers beside you, pulling your attention back to the quiet room. Its light glows softly, brushing over your hands, illuminating the rough wool beneath your fingertips. You take a slow breath. Here, inside your chamber, the pace of life changes. The cold remains, but the noise of the castle fades. The footsteps, the echoes, the distant clang of metal, the murmurs in the hall, all begin to soften into silence. You can feel the day loosening its hold. This room, despite the cold, has its comforts. Here, the world is small, predictable, safe. You rest both hands on your knees for a moment and let your eyes drift over the room once more. The wooden chest beneath the window stores your clothes and spare linens. The stool near the hearth holds your cloak. The table beside your bed carries a small wooden cup, half filled with water drawn earlier from the kitchen well. Your candle sits beside it, flame steady now. Everything in this room has its place. Everything is familiar. And in winter, familiarity becomes warmth of its own. You lean back slightly, feeling the edge of the straw-filled mattress support you. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in the scent of wool, straw, and cooling stone. Here, in your chamber, the night will pass, not in comfort, but in quiet endurance. The cold remains around you, patient and steady, but warmth waits too. Beneath blankets, within curtains, inside the small space you will soon make your own. You open your eyes slowly, lifting your head as you prepare to rise again and ready the room for sleep. And in that small pause, you realize something simple and true. You have made this chamber a place that winter can visit, but never conquer. A place where cold steps inside and rests quietly at the edges, while you hold the center. A sleeping chamber carved into stone, and a warmth carved into your own resilience. And the night, long and heavy as it may be, will pass gently here. You rest your hand on the wool blankets a moment longer, feeling how cold the room still is around you. Then, slowly, you draw your gaze upward, to the curtains hanging from the bed's canopy. They sway just slightly in the faint movement of air. Heavy cloth, dense and tightly woven, their edges brushing softly against the wooden posts. They are not decoration, not luxury, not indulgence. They are protection. You touch one of the curtains between your fingers, pinching the wool lightly. The fabric is thick, far thicker than anything you would wear during the day. It feels sturdy, substantial, and reassuring. This curtain is meant to hold warmth close, guarding it like a precious ember. You slide your thumb across its surface, feeling the natural oils in the wool, the coarse threads, the slight unevenness that comes from hand weaving. This curtain is old, perhaps older than the bed itself, yet still strong enough to do its job. And its job is simple: to trap your warmth in a world built of stone and ice. You lift the curtain gently, letting it drape over your palm. Its weight surprises you every winter. It pulls downward, thick and solid. More like a blanket you hang than a curtain you push aside. When you let it fall again, it settles with a soft, muted thump against the edge of the bed frame. You breathe slowly, watching the fabric tremble slightly before it grows still. The cold is everywhere in the room, floating in the air, clinging to the stone, waiting on the floor. But once you step behind those curtains, once you lie beneath the blankets, once the space closes around you, the world becomes smaller, warmer, quieter. The medieval bed canopy was never meant to be beautiful. It was meant to be practical, necessary. A tiny enclosed shelter inside a freezing castle. You draw the curtains open wider, letting the candlelight spill into the space. Inside, the bed looks almost like a small room of its own, a secret refuge, a pocket of warmth carved out of winter. The canopy above is plain, made of wooden slats holding the fabric in place. The posts rise up straight and dependable, framing your rest like a protective sentry. You know from experience that when the curtains are closed, fully, tightly, carefully, it becomes noticeably warmer inside, even on the coldest nights. Heat from your breath gathers inside the space. The warmth of your body fills the air. Your blankets absorb it and reflect it back against you. And the curtains keep it all from drifting into the cold stone room. You slide your fingers along the inside of the curtain again, imagining the nights ahead when it will shield you against winter's hardest moods. You step back from the bed slightly, candle in hand, and look at the canopy more fully. You imagine how this chamber must have felt centuries ago, before your time, before the fire grate was improved, before the shutters were repaired. Even then, the bed, with its curtains drawn tight, would have made the difference between shivering through the night and sleeping with a sense of safety. You lift your free hand and run it across the wooden bedpost. It is smooth in places, rough in others, worn by many hands that sought warmth just as you do now. This room has known countless winters, and this bed has known countless sleepers, all relying on its shelter. You move closer again, studying the fabric. Some curtains were wool like yours, heavy and practical. Others, in noble rooms, were velvet or lined with fur. But the purpose did not change. The function was always the same. Even the wealthiest noble, wrapped in brocade and fur, slept in a room that could drop near freezing. A vast stone chamber, high ceiling, drafty walls, icy floors. Wealth could soften the cold, but never remove it. The bed curtains became the great equalizer. You imagine a noble in another tower, pulling velvet curtains around themselves, just as you will pull your wool ones. Warmth was warmth, whether you lived in one of the smallest chambers or one of the grandest halls. You breathe deeply, letting the truth of medieval life settle gently in your mind. The canopy bed was technology, not grand, not complex, but essential. The medieval version of insulation. A chamber within a chamber, a warm nest in a stone fortress. You step closer still, reaching for the edge of the curtain once more. As you pull it, the fabric moves slowly, obediently, swallowing your hand in shadow as it draws near. Inside the bed space, it is darker now. The candlelight softened, muffled through the fabric. You slip your hand beneath the blankets, feeling the cool layers waiting to be warmed by your body. Wool on wool, linen beneath, straw mattress below. You trace the top blanket lightly with your fingers. It has weight, just like the curtain. Medieval warmth comes from heaviness, from layers, from materials that block cold, not with softness, but with density. You remember the sheepskin at the foot of the bed, a thick, comforting layer you will pull toward you once you settle in. Sheepskin traps warmth instantly. It has saved many nights, and nights in a castle are long, longer still in winter. You picture how people centuries ago prepared for bed in these same conditions. Nobles and servants alike, layering sheets, blankets, skins, each layer added with intention, not for luxury, but for survival. You place your hand on the mattress again, pressing into the straw-filled linen. You can feel the firmness beneath, the slight shifting of the packed straw inside. There is comfort here too. Rough, simple comfort. You draw the curtain all the way closed now, letting its edge fall gently against your wrist before slipping free. The fabric settles with a soft, muffled whisper. The world inside the bed becomes dimmer, quieter, more intimate. You feel the difference instantly. The air behind the curtain is slightly less cold, held close and still. The warmth of the candlelight lingers, softened and diffused. The space feels smaller, safer, like a nest cradled inside a stone shell. You lift the curtain on the opposite side and let it fall too, enclosing the bed completely. The curtains overlap slightly, forming a private cocoon against the room's chill. In this quiet enclosure, you feel the subtle power of medieval ingenuity. Not flashy, not complicated, but effective, deeply effective. You sit on the edge of the mattress again, letting your hands rest gently in your lap. You breathe slowly. The space responds, holding your warmth, your breath, your quiet presence. And as you sit there, you begin to feel the truth of it. This small, enclosed space will warm faster than the rest of the room. It will trap your breath like a gentle cloud. It will hold your body heat close, refusing to let it drift into the cold air beyond the curtain. The people of this era were not helpless against winter. They adapted in simple, clever ways. Ways that still make sense when you feel them for yourself. You touch the curtain again, smoothing a fold in the wool, appreciating how something so simple holds such quiet power. The canopy bed is not just furniture. It is shelter. It is warmth. It is the heart of a freezing chamber. And soon, as you lie beneath the blankets, surrounded by wool and straw, and the softened glow of fading firelight, you will understand why medieval people trusted this small enclosed space more than anything else during winter nights. A room within a room, a refuge within stone, a warmth built from breath, cloth, and quiet endurance. As the curtain settles back into place, the lesson settles with it. Warmth, in the Middle Ages, was something you built, layer by layer, breath by breath, night after night. And you are about to do the same. You sit at the edge of the bed, letting the weight of the day slip from your shoulders, one small movement at a time. Your outer cloak hangs from you like a slab of frozen wool. It has gathered the cold of the castle corridors, the chill of the courtyard wind, the breath of winter that clings to fabric long after you come indoors. Your fingers feel stiff when you reach for the clasp. The metal is cold against your skin, colder than stone, as though it has absorbed the entire night into its tiny shape. With a slow, patient motion, you undo it. The cloak slips free. It falls behind you with a soft, heavy sound, an exhale of fabric meeting the wooden floor. The cold trapped inside it releases at once, brushing against your legs like a final sigh before it settles. You remain in your thick wool garments, layered shirt over tunic, tunic over undershirt, woolen hose against your legs. These layers will not be removed. Not tonight. Not in a castle. Winter. Medieval sleep is not bare skin against sheets. It is clothing against blankets, layers upon layers, every thread working alongside the next to hold warmth close. You run your hands along your sleeves, feeling the coarse weave beneath your fingertips. Wool spun thick, scratchy, dependable. Clothing made for nights like this. You draw a slow breath. The cold air stings gently in your chest, but it is familiar by now, not frightening. Only present. Like a companion, winter insists on sending with you wherever you go. You shift your weight and slip onto the straw-filled mattress. The straw rustles softly beneath you, shifting to support your weight. It is firmer than a modern bed, uneven in places, but there is comfort in its simplicity. A medieval mattress is alive in its own way, gently adjusting, warming slowly beneath you, responsive to your resting body. You pull the blankets over your lap, feeling their weight settle like a protective hand. 2 wool blankets, 1 linen sheet beneath, a fur thrown across the foot of the bed, a sheepskin folded near the pillow. You draw the top blanket closer to your shoulders. The wool brushes against your cheek, textured and warm where moments ago it was cool. Your body heat begins to spread through the fabric almost immediately. You exhale, letting your breath drift upward in a faint white cloud before fading into the dim air. Then slowly, you gather the blankets up to your shoulders. Warmth begins in soft pockets, a patch of heat near your chest, another near your stomach, a faint glow along your legs, where the blankets press close. The cold that seeped into your clothes from the corridor still lingers, but the blankets begin to push it back inch by inch. You sink a little deeper into the mattress, feeling the heat settle around you like a second skin. Outside the bed curtains, the room remains a world of dim, blue shadow, a world made of stone, frost, and silence. The castle chamber around you is still and breathless. You can't see the far walls from where you lie, not clearly, only the faint suggestion of outlines, where candlelight breaks against the darkness. Stone absorbs every bit of heat the moment it touches air. It waits, patient and indifferent, holding the cold of centuries. Your candle stands on the table nearby, its flame flickering its last minutes of life. Shadows dance on the walls in slow, lazy arcs, stretching and shrinking like sighs drifting through the room. The stone floor beneath the bed is so cold that you know frost has come to sleep on it. It silently collects along the joints of the stone blocks, gathering in the hairline cracks. It creeps into the corners of the chamber like a careful visitor, staying content to simply watch from a distance. You pull the blankets closer, letting their heaviness rest across your chest. In a medieval bedroom, warmth is not a luxury. It is a task, one you perform with your body, your breath, your layers, and your patience. And the bed is your strongest ally. You shift slightly, feeling the straw beneath you compress another inch. Your body begins to carve a small hollow in the bedding, a pocket that will warm with you throughout the night. You reach to your side and gently draw one of the bed curtains inward. The fabric falls softly, brushing against your hand before settling into place. The curtain hangs like a wall, blocking the castle chill with surprising effectiveness. The draft that moved across the floor moments ago no longer reaches you. You pull the second curtain as well, closing the rest of the world outside your small enclosure. At once, the space feels different. The dim blue of the room now fades behind the wool curtains. The sound of distant wind rumbles in a muffled whisper, softened by layers of hanging fabric. Even the candle's fluttering light feels gentler, filtering through the curtain like a faint glow instead of a bright flame. Your bed becomes a tiny room within the room, a retreat, a sanctuary, a warm pocket in a universe of winter. You lie back fully now, head sinking into the stuffed linen pillow. It is firm, supportive, and edged with a faint scent of herbs, lavender, sage, perhaps thyme, tucked inside last autumn to keep pests away. The cold no longer presses so sharply against your face. The air inside the curtains is already a shade warmer, shaped by your breath. You exhale again, slow and steady, feeling your body relax another inch into the bed. Your hands slip beneath the blankets, tucked close to your stomach. Your feet search for the warmest place beneath the layers. The sheepskin at the foot of the bed provides instant comfort. Its texture is soft and dense, a small luxury in a world where winter is relentless. Your breathing begins to slow. The tension in your shoulders eases. Beyond the curtain, the candle gives one final flicker and dims. Not fully gone, but softer now, almost shy. The cold air in the room grows darker, settling into the corners like a resting creature. You lie a moment longer, listening. Far away in the castle, you hear faint echoes. The quiet thud of someone closing a door in a distant corridor. The low hum of wind passing through a narrow window slit. The soft creak of timbers adjusting to the temperature. But here, inside your curtained bed, the world feels small, contained, quiet, safe. This is how medieval people survived the cold, not by warming the entire room, but by warming the smallest possible space, a space built from cloth, breath, and patience. You turn your head slightly, letting your cheek rest against the pillow. It warms beneath you, slow but certain. You inhale. The cold enters your nose but loses strength before it reaches your lungs. You exhale. Warmth gathers. Your blankets feel heavier now. Not from weight, but from comfort. The medieval night is long. Longer still inside a castle. But you have done everything you need to prepare. Your garments hold what heat they can. Your blankets trap what warmth your body offers. Your bed curtains shelter you from drafts and creeping frost. This is how people slept in stone fortresses, wrapped in layers, shielded by fabric, wrapped in their own breath, and held by the stillness of night. You breathe again, slowly. The curtains sway gently as the air moves around you. The cold remains outside your small enclosure, unable to reach you fully. Not tonight. You close your eyes, letting your body settle, not just into the mattress, but into the history of the moment. You become part of the long continuum of people who have done exactly what you are doing now, surviving winter with blankets, curtains, and quiet endurance. The warmth spreads just a little more, your muscles relax a little deeper. Your breath grows slower, gentler, softer. You are ready for sleep. And the medieval night, long and cold though it may be, feels just a little less vast, just a little less sharp, just a little more peaceful. And with the curtains drawn tight and the blankets pulled close, you finally let yourself rest. You lie beneath the weight of your blankets, feeling the first threads of warmth spreading across your chest and arms. The cold still lingers around the edges of the bed curtains, a silent reminder that winter has no intention of loosening its grip. But inside this small pocket of fabric and breath, something begins to change. The warmth feels earned, not expected. A slow glow kindling inside layers of wool. You shift slightly, feeling the clothing against your skin. Not loose, airy garments, but the thick layers medieval people wore, long after the sun went down. You can feel each piece where it rests. The heavy wool tunic that covers your torso, the padded under-tunic beneath it, the wool hose wrapped snugly along your legs, the thick, woven socks that protect your feet from the cold that rises off the stone floor. This is why medieval people dressed the way they did for bed. Not because they disliked comfort, not because they didn't have access to softer garments, but because warmth wasn't something taken for granted. It was something you built, one layer at a time. You run your hand down the front of your tunic, feeling the thickness of the fabric. You remember how servants dressed after long days, how they sometimes collapsed onto their straw bedding fully clothed, boots off, but everything else still on. Even nobles, even those living in the highest towers with the warmest tapestries, kept layers on through the night. A padded undergarment, a woolen over tunic, sometimes an extra cloak laid over their shoulders before they slipped beneath their blankets. In wealthy chambers, furs could be spread across the mattress. Fox, marten, sheepskin, or even ermine for the highest nobility. But fur wasn't luxury in winter. It was insulation, a partnership with nature to survive the months when the world froze. You feel the warmth beginning to gather at your chest. Your body is doing the work. The quiet, persistent work of generating heat. The layers you wear trap that heat patiently. The blankets press it gently against your skin. Your nightcap holds it close to your head. You flex your toes inside your woolen socks. They are thick, thicker than anything modern, and worn soft by use. You rub your heel lightly against the straw mattress. The friction sparks a tiny moment of warmth. Even foot wraps were common in this world. Long strips of cloth wound carefully around the feet instead of knitted socks. They were easier to make, easier to mend, and surprisingly warm when layered correctly. A peasant in a village, a soldier on campaign, a castle servant climbing a turret staircase, all of them relied on foot wraps to keep the cold from gnawing at their toes. You shift again, letting the blankets settle into new folds. Your clothing creaks softly with the movement. The layers feel heavy now, but comfortingly so. There is a sense of safety in their weight, a sense of being held gently but firmly against the winter air. You draw one slow, deep breath, and then another. The warmth builds. You imagine how people across Europe slept like this, from Scotland to the northern coasts of France, from Germany's stone fortresses to Scandinavian timber halls. Sleeping without layers would have been unimaginable. Even the wealthiest nobles, surrounded by servants and embroidered tapestries, understood that cold was a power stronger than status. You feel that truth in your bones now. Your garments are not decoration, they are shields. You close your eyes for a moment, letting your breathing fall into a soft, rhythmic pattern. With each exhale, the pocket of warm air inside the curtains becomes a degree warmer. The temperature shifts so gradually it's easy to miss, but your cheeks no longer sting. and your fingertips no longer ache. You open your eyes again to the faint glow of the candle through the curtain. Its light is soft now, barely reaching your bed, but it brings a sense of presence, a reminder that fire still burns somewhere in the room. Far beyond your bed curtains, the castle remains cold. The walls hold the night in their stone. The floor whispers with draughts. The ceiling groans gently as timbers contract. Even in the Lord's chambers, chills slip down from the arrow slits. Even in the great hall, the embers fade beneath sooty iron. But here, inside your bed, inside this small fabric shelter wrapped around your body, the world narrows into something manageable. You adjust your nightcap again, tugging it down slightly so it covers your ears more fully. A small comfort, a necessary one. Medieval people knew warmth was not something that arrived on its own. It was something you wore, something you built, something you guarded closely. Layer by layer, thread by thread, breath by breath. You feel your shoulders sink into the bedding once more. Your muscles begin to loosen. Your hands relax, no longer curled so tightly inside your sleeves. The cold still waits just beyond the curtain, patient and powerful. But it no longer feels like a threat. It feels distant, muted, held at bay by cloth, by blankets, by the slow warmth your body creates. You close your eyes again, this time a little longer. Your breath drifts out in soft, measured rhythm. The curtain near your face moves gently with it. Your layers settle around you like a cocoon. The nightcap presses lightly against your forehead. The socked warmth at your feet holds steady. You are not fighting the cold anymore. You are simply existing within it, wrapped, protected, preserved. Warmth isn't an expectation in this world. It is an ongoing battle, a nightly ritual, a practice of patience. And here, beneath the blankets, dressed in wool and padded cloth, you feel yourself becoming part of that long, ancient rhythm. You breathe again, and again, and slowly, the cold retreats a little more. You feel the warmth spreading beneath your layers, quietly, gently, faithfully. Night deepens around the castle, but you, wrapped in your medieval layers, feel sleep finally beginning to arrive. A few feet away, the fire burns low, not quite alive, not quite gone, just breathing softly in the darkness. You watch it through the thin gap in your bed curtains, a faint, wavering glow, no larger than a cupped hand. The embers pulse and dim, pulse and dim, like sleepy eyes fighting to stay open. A soft pop echoes from the hearth as a piece of wood shifts in its final collapse. It is not the lively crackling that fills the castle during the day. It is quieter now, a whisper, a last breath, and still, it comforts you. You listen to the low rustle of ash settling. Every sound is small and gentle, softened by the heavy darkness of the room. The castle's vast stone chamber lies in deep shadow, but the fire paints small strokes of amber across the wall. Faint glimmers that move as though stirred by a slow, warm breeze. You know well that this little fire cannot heat the room. No hearth, no matter how large, could ever warm so much stone. The walls are too thick, the cold too persistent, the night too deep. But the goal was never to warm the castle, only to soften its sharpest edges. You breathe out slowly, watching your breath drift into the faint glow. You imagine the servant who tended the hearth before retiring to their own quarters, how they leaned close to coax the last pieces of wood into place, how they swept the ash from the stones so the fire could last until morning. The day's last task, done with quiet intention. a small act of kindness performed for someone they may never see sleeping. You feel that care now, resting with you in the room. A human touch that lingers long after footsteps fade down the corridor. The embers shift again, sending a tiny plume of sparks upward. They glow brightly for a heartbeat before softening into orange dust. You shift deeper beneath your blankets, letting the warmth you have built wrap tightly around your body. The air outside the bed curtains is cold, sharp, unmoving, heavy with winter, but inside your small cloth cocoon, the warmth is yours. It grows with each breath, each slow exhale. The hearth cannot heat the whole chamber. It never could. But what it does offer is something quieter, something deeper, a sense of presence. A reminder that this night, like all nights, has been tended to, shaped, watched, cared for. A reminder that you are not facing the cold alone. You listen to the fire again, that soft crumbling, the hush of wood turning into glowing memory. It is a sound countless castle dwellers once heard, lords in their great beds, servants curled on humble pallets, guards resting before dawn watches. People separated by rank but united by the same winter, the same darkness, the same fading glow. The fire reflects itself faintly in the metal of a nearby iron pot, turning it warm for just a moment. Then the light shifts again, settling back into shadow. You lie still, letting the glow become your anchor, small but steady, distant but dependable. It flickers, it softens, but it remains. And in its dim amber rhythm, you feel something ancient and reassuring. Night may be long, winter may be harsh, stone may be cold, but warmth, even a small flickering ember of it, endures. And it is enough for now. You lie beneath your blankets, watching the faint glow of the hearth fade. And as it dims, so does the illusion of warmth most people imagine medieval fires provided. Because in truth, castles were never warm, not even for their lords. The fire before you seems strong, but you know its limits. Every medieval hearth had the same quiet flaw. It could burn brightly, but it could not fight the cold. Even the largest stone fireplaces, wide enough for 3 people to stand inside, were surprisingly inefficient. In the early centuries, they didn't even have chimneys. Smoke drifted upward in thick clouds, searching for any escape it could find. A vent in the ceiling, a high, narrow window, or a simple hole cut through the roof. Most of the heat followed the smoke, rising and disappearing into the dark rafters. You breathe slowly, feeling the cool air settle around your cheeks. The fire is only a few paces away, yet most of the chamber remains untouched. A blue, breathless stillness. Stone absorbs warmth greedily, pulling it inward, holding it for hours, only to release it again as cold. You think of how many castle rooms functioned this way, vast halls that looked grand, but swallowed heat the moment flames were lit. Even servants tending the great hearths felt the cold at their backs, while their faces burned from the fire. Only those sitting close, very close, felt true warmth. You remember the stories told by travelers and scribes, how nobles dined wearing layers of wool, how visiting guests kept gloves on at the table, how even kings could see their breath in their own halls. People slept near sources of heat, not because it was comfortable, but because cold was a quiet adversary, steady and patient. That is why canopy beds existed at all. Why thick drapes hung around sleeping places. Why blankets were layered so heavily that moving beneath them felt like shifting a small mountain. These were not luxuries. They were survival. Small, practical defenses against the shortcomings of the fire. Your own bed curtains serve that purpose now. They trap the breath you exhale, building a fragile pocket of warmth around your body. Inside this little enclosure, the air softens, grows gentler. While just beyond the fabric, the chamber remains unchanged. You listen to the faint hum of the wind slipping along the outer wall. Even here, in a stone fortress meant to protect against armies, winter finds its way through cracks and crevices. A castle could defend life, but it could not defend warmth. You settle deeper beneath your blankets, understanding why the fire, the curtains, and the layers of wool are all needed. Not one of them is enough on its own, but together they create a small world where you can be still, where the cold stays just far enough away, and where sleep can finally unfold, quietly and slowly. And now, as the embers fade again, you feel a subtle acceptance. This is how people slept through the centuries, not in comfort, but in endurance. And somehow, that endurance has its own kind of peace. You lie completely still beneath the weight of the blankets, their heaviness a gentle comfort pressing softly against your chest. The first layer of warmth gathers around your shoulders, slowly spreading outward, settling into the spaces between fabric and skin. Your body begins to loosen, to release the tension that clung to it while you walk through the cold halls. A long breath leaves your lips, warm against the chilled air, and you feel yourself sink ever so slightly deeper into the bedding. Outside the curtains of your bed, the sleeping chamber rests in a blue-tinted hush. Beyond the chamber, the castle waits. Ancient, cold, quiet, but never truly silent. It begins with the wood. Even in a fortress built of stone, there is always wood somewhere. Beams, doors, frames, floors, all of it reacting to the temperature, the slow contraction that comes with winter's deep freeze. You hear it now, faint and unhurried. A soft groan from a timber support near the ceiling. A muted pop from a wooden chest settling near the wall. A quiet crackle inside the bed frame, where the warmth of your body meets the cold of the room. Every sound is small, yet each one seems magnified in the stillness. You breathe slowly through your nose, feeling the air cool your throat. Time stretches. The blankets warm you. The torch in the hall gutters faintly through the stone doorframe. Then, from far beyond your room, you hear the echo of footsteps, a guard on the battlements, making his rounds. The rhythm is distinct, boots meeting stone in a steady, practiced cadence. Thud, 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 each step dull with distance, softened by layers of wall and corridor. He walks with familiarity, unhurried, alert, but calm. You imagine the faint plume of his breath drifting into the night, the frost gathering on his beard, the feel of the spear in his gloved hand. Even though you cannot see him, the sound of his patrol is strangely comforting. He walks so you don't have to worry. He keeps watch so you may rest. The footsteps fade, turn, fade again, and soon become no more than memory. Your breathing slows again. The blankets grow warmer. Your eyelids drift slightly lower. A long moment passes, quiet and still. Then the stone speaks. Castles always speak at night, not in words, not in whispers, but in small shifts, tiny releases of tension as the structure adjusts to the cold, sinking into its bones. You hear a faint tapping high in the wall, the sound of contracting mortar deep within the castle's inner layers. Another sound follows, softer, almost like a sigh. A gentle settling of weight, stone against stone. The castle is alive in its own way. Not warm-blooded, not breathing, but ancient and aware of the cold. You listen without effort, letting the small noises wash over you. Then the wind finds its way into the story. Somewhere in the outer wall, a narrow arrow loop, one of the tall, thin slits used long ago for defense, allows a thin wisp of winter air to slip through. It isn't strong, just a faint, wavering breath of wind, enough to stir the shadows. You hear it as a soft whistle, a note carried through stone corridors. A sound your mind would normally overlook during the day becomes something else entirely at night, a lullaby carried by winter. The sound rises, then falls, almost rhythmic, almost gentle. It drifts through the chamber, brushing the bed curtains, and then disappearing again. You let your shoulders settle as you feel the way the castle exhales around you. The flicker of the dying fire shifts on the wall. You sense it, even with the curtains partly drawn. A faint red-orange glow seeps in at the edges of the fabric, warm and pulsing softly, like a heartbeat. Beyond the bed's enclosure, the cold air lies heavy on the floor. It pools near the stone, gathering in corners and along the walls. You can almost see it in your mind. The cold as a presence of its own, thick and unmoving. And yet, none of it disturbs you. If anything, the contrast between the cold outside the curtains and the warmth within them makes you feel safer, more sheltered, more deeply cocooned in your narrow oasis of heat. You take in another slow breath. Your body sinks a little deeper still. The castle continues its night song. A distant door creaks somewhere far down the corridor, long, slow, fatigued. Perhaps a servant finishing late work. Perhaps simply wood responding to the cold again. The sound echoes faintly, travels along stone, then disappears as quickly as it came. Silence returns, thicker now. You imagine the great hall below you, empty and echoing. Rushes on the floor rustling as the drafts pass through. Banners hanging motionless on the walls. A few stray embers lingering in the massive hearth at the center of the room. Night in a castle is not warm, but it is steady, predictable, ancient. You hear one more noise, the soft flutter of a tapestry shifting against the wall as a current of air moves through a hallway. The fabric brushes stone, creating a sound so faint you might have missed it, if not for the quiet around you. Then, nothing, just the low hum of winter night. You lie there, listening to how everything slows, how the world narrows to the soft weight of blankets, the faint glow of embers, the whisper of wind, the memory of footsteps, the shifting of wood, the breathing of stone. Your own heartbeat seems to sync with the castle's rhythm, slow, steady, old. Your breaths grow longer, smoother, drifting into a calm you haven't reached in a long time. Outside the chamber door, the castle is enduring the same cold you are. It has endured countless winters, countless nights, just like this one. And in its quiet endurance, you find something like comfort. You close your eyes halfway, listening. Another faint sound. Was it the distant clang of metal? A guard adjusting his armor? A chain swaying gently from the wind above the gate? Or simply imagination, shaped by the stillness? It doesn't matter. Every sound belongs to the same tapestry that makes the castle feel alive. Every noise, no matter how small, is woven into centuries of nights before this one. You let yourself drift through those centuries, imagining others who lay in similar beds, beneath similar blankets, listening to the exact same night sounds flow through the corridors. Nobles, servants, guards, children, people who also breathed slowly, waiting for morning, people who knew the cold and knew how to survive it. You inhale softly, the air cool but gentle. Your chest rises and falls in an easy rhythm. This night is long, yes, but it is peaceful in its own way. The sounds continue only when they choose to, spaced out, unhurried, different each time, but always familiar. The castle shifts, the wind sighs, the fire whispers its last warmth, and your breathing joins the quiet symphony. You turn your head slightly on the pillow, feeling the straw mattress settle beneath you. You draw the blankets closer, and their warmth gathers again around your neck and chin. The sounds of the castle at night have done their work, not to startle you, not to keep you alert, but to let you feel the age of the place embracing your rest. You listen one last time to the wind, the stone, the wood, and realize how deeply your body has relaxed, how close sleep has come, how safe the quiet feels. The castle will keep standing, the guards will keep walking, the night will keep breathing, and you can surrender to it. You exhale slowly, letting your mind soften, letting your thoughts drift like the wind through the arrow loops. The castle settles again, and so do you. Even in the deepest hours of the night, medieval castles never truly slept. Silence, the kind you know today, did not exist within stone walls built for war, protection, and ceaseless activity. A castle at night was its own living organism, breathing, shifting, murmuring quietly beneath the weight of winter. Guards were the most constant presence. They walked their routes at all hours, circling the inner wards, pacing along the battlements, or standing at the gatehouse fire to warm stiff fingers. Their boots struck stone with a rhythm that echoed through courtyards and travelled up stairwells. Every guard patrol was a matter of survival. Castles facing harsh winters often used rotating watches, so no one stood too long in the freezing wind. The crisp clink of a belt buckle or the faint jingle of mail was sometimes the only human sound breaking the cold. Inside the castle, drafts wove their way through arrow loops, garderobe shafts, and unsealed cracks in the masonry. These weren't gentle breezes. A castle built of stone was full of narrow passages and hollow chambers that turned wind into a low, humming note. The sound drifted down spiral staircases or whispered beneath doors, creating an atmosphere medieval people knew as intimately as their own heartbeat. It was a winter companion, reminder, and warning, and they listened to it every night. The inhabitants of a castle were many, and not all kept the same hours. Servants rose early or retired late, depending on the household's schedule. You might hear the soft shuffle of feet as someone checked embers in the great hall or prepared warm coals for the Lord's chamber. In medieval kitchens, the last pot might still be cooling, or a servant might rake ashes to save the last bit of heat for morning cooking. Animals contributed their own quiet sounds. Castle stables housed horses that shifted in their stalls, snorted softly, or stamped against the cold. Dogs slept near doors or hearths, occasionally lifting their heads at distant noises. Even in winter, geese or chickens sheltered in covered pens, producing faint rustles that drifted through yard walls. Beyond the walls, the night itself added its voice. Wolves howled on some lands, owls called from the forests, snow slid from rooftops or gathered softly against doors. People did not fall asleep to silence. They fell asleep to a medieval soundscape shaped by stone, wind, fire, animals, and duty. A noble sleeping in a curtained bed A servant curled on a pallet of straw, a guard resting on a bench near a brazier. All of them drifted to sleep under the same tapestry of noises. The winter hum of castle life was never frightening. For medieval ears, it was familiar, grounding, and oddly comforting. It meant the world around them was continuing as it always had. Even in the darkest months, a castle's nights were filled with the steady pulse of life, and wrapped in blankets, listening from your own chamber, you drift slowly with it into the same centuries-old rhythm countless people once knew. Your body heat begins to gather under it, slow as dawn breaking over a frozen field. You curl your toes beneath the blankets. They were cold only moments ago, stiff, almost numb from the walk through the corridor and the stillness of the room. Now, tucked between layers of wool and sheepskin, warmth trickles back into them. First, a tingling sensation, then a dull ache as the cold retreats, and then finally, a gentle easing. A small victory your body recognizes instinctively. Medieval people learned to cherish these victories. They understood warmth not as something guaranteed, but as something earned through patience, preparation, and the quiet discipline of settling in for the night. They knew that the first few minutes in bed mattered the most, the moment when your own heat began to build, when the cold stopped stealing from you, and the blankets finally began to give something back. Outside the bed curtains, the room remains unchanged. The stone walls are still frigid. The air is still sharp with winter. The last glow from the hearth is weak, hardly bright enough to soften the darkness. But here, inside your cocoon of cloth, the world is different. Inside the bed curtains, you are creating your own climate, just as medieval people once did. Your breath grows warmer with each slow exhale. Your chest relaxes with each inhale. You can feel your fingers loosening, no longer clenched against the cold. You let them fall gently against your wool tunic, resting over the blanket. The cold tries to creep back in, but it can't reach you now. Your warmth is growing faster than the cold can steal it. In medieval households, whether in castles or cottages, this moment was universally understood. People knew that the body was the true hearth of the night. Fires dwindled, candles went out, stone walls held the cold like a memory. But the human body, covered in layers of wool and linen, radiated a subtle but powerful heat. And medieval beds were designed with this in mind. You can feel it now as you pull the heavy blankets higher, tucking them around your shoulders. Every element of the bed is working for you. The straw mattress beneath you, firm but warm, traps warmth slowly. The linen sheets close to your skin hold your body heat. The blanket weight presses down gently, preventing cold drafts from sneaking underneath. The sheepskin adds warmth from below, insulating your body from the cold rising through the stone floor. And the bed curtains, they are the quiet miracle of medieval winter nights. Thick enough to hold back drafts, heavy enough to capture your warmth, close enough to make you feel enclosed, safe, protected. For a moment, you open your eyes just slightly, gazing through the dim darkness of your enclosed space. You see only the curtains and shadows, nothing else. No cold stone, no flickering candle struggling against the air, no frozen window. Only this small world, shaped by your breath and your warmth. This is how people survived the coldest nights in medieval castles, by shrinking the world down to a space they could warm themselves. You breathe again, slow, steady, even. Warmth blooms in your chest, your belly, your legs. Every breath you release fills the small space with heat, and every breath you draw in grows softer, warmer, calmer. Outside the curtains, winter continues without mercy. But inside, warmth gathers. People in medieval castles understood this strange physics of survival well. They slept in layers not to make themselves warm, but to keep the warmth they produced from escaping. They wore woolen nightcaps because the body loses more heat from the head than almost anywhere else. They wrapped their feet in linen or thick socks because cold attacked the extremities first. And always, they slept close to family, servants, or companions, not from affection alone, but from necessity. Many castles housed multiple people in a single chamber during winter, sharing warmth through proximity, a quiet, ancient logic. You feel that same logic now as your own warmth deepens, spreading from your core outward. Your body is becoming a small furnace, held gently by soft layers meant to keep every degree of heat close to you. You inhale deeply, and the air you draw in carries a hint of warmth from your previous breath. You exhale again, and the heat stays inside the curtains. You feel your shoulders loosen, tension melting out of them. Your jaw unclenches. Your fingers uncurl, resting softly atop your blankets. The cold hasn't disappeared, but it has been pushed away, held outside the small refuge you have created. It waits beyond the curtain, patient but distant. Inside this tiny room within the room, you are winning. This quiet ritual was repeated every night through the medieval centuries. It was a kind of slow magic, a person lying in the darkness, pulling the world closer around themselves, holding still until their own warmth filled the space. Crusaders, nobles, merchants, servants. All of them knew the relief of feeling heat gather after a long day of cold stone corridors and draft-filled chambers. Now you know it too. Your eyelids feel heavier, your breathing softer. Your thoughts drift like snowflakes, quiet, unhurried, gentle. You sense your body sinking deeper into the straw mattress, the layers of wool forming a nest around you. The darkness inside the curtains is complete, but it feels comforting, not isolating. It feels like being held. The castle around you fades from your awareness. No more stone walls, no distant winds, no echoing corridors. Only the steady pulse of your breath, the warmth gathering, and the slow, ancient rhythm of sleep creeping in. In medieval times, this was the moment when someone finally settled for the night, when the struggle against cold eased, when the body overcame the winter, when warmth became enough. You have reached that moment now. And as you lie there, wrapped in heavy wool and surrounded by the soft darkness of your curtains, the warmth you've gathered continues to spread. Slow, steady, certain, guiding you gently towards sleep. Just as it did for countless souls within these stone walls centuries ago. You feel the warmth building around you now, quietly, patiently, the way medieval heat was always made. Not through fireplaces big enough to conquer stone, not through inventions that had yet to exist, but through something far older, far simpler, the heat of living bodies. In a world of freezing stone chambers, of drafts slipping through every shutter and doorway, body heat wasn't just warmth, it was survival. You lie beneath your blankets and feel your own warmth spreading, slow and steady, the same way countless medieval people once did. They understood deeply that the human body was a small furnace, one that could warm whatever space it was given, so long as that space was small enough and close enough. And that is why medieval beds were not just beds. They were shelters within shelters. You imagine the people of a medieval castle preparing for sleep just as you have, drawing the curtains tight, pulling wool close, waiting patiently for their bodies to warm the air inside that tiny space. One person could warm a curtained bed eventually, but not easily, not quickly. 2 people made it easier, 3 made it comfortable, and entire families, especially in the harshest winters, often slept side by side, creating a shared pocket of warmth that no hearth could match. Even nobles did this, whether they admitted it publicly or not. Children curled at their parents' feet. Servants slept at the foot of the bed. Companions and attendants were never far. Warmth was more valuable than privacy. You breathe in slowly, letting this ancient truth settle into you. The medieval world had no central heating, no insulation. Glass windows were rare and precious. Wind crept through the smallest openings. Cold sank through stone with relentless patience. So people learned to create heat the only way they could. Together. You picture it now, not as a distant fact, but as something you can feel. A shared bed curtain drawn tight against the dark. Heavy blankets layered and tucked beneath. The sound of slow breathing in the stillness. The warmth of bodies melting the cold between them. There were other tricks too. Small acts of ingenuity born from centuries of cold nights. Hot stones pulled fresh from the hearth, wrapped carefully in scraps of linen or wool, then slipped between blankets before anyone climbed into bed. The stones didn't stay hot for long, maybe an hour, maybe 2. But long enough to take the sting out of the first chill, long enough to make the bed a little more welcoming. You can almost feel one now, a phantom weight at your feet, the memory of warmth lingering even after the stone itself has cooled. And below you, the straw mattress does its part, just as it did for medieval sleepers. Firm beneath your weight, but warm in its way, a barrier between the cold stone floor and the fragile heat your body works so hard to keep. Straw traps, warmth gently, holding just enough of your heat to keep it from slipping into the ground. Wool blankets do the rest. Thick, heavy, rough in texture, but reliable in every season. Wool does not just warm, it guards warmth, keeping the cold at bay even when damp. This is the simple brilliance of medieval survival. Every layer, every material, every habit designed to protect what little heat the body can make. You breathe again, slower now. The warmth you've built gathers around you, rising from your feet to your chest, from your chest to your shoulders, settling gently into your neck and face. It is the same quiet warmth that medieval people would have felt, a warmth earned breath by breath. You imagine lying beside others in the dark, family members, companions, children, servants, all breathing quietly, all radiating small amounts of heat, all surviving the winter night together. It wasn't simply custom. It was not just comfort. It was the science of the medieval world. They knew what you can feel now, that warmth spreads, and warmth shared is warmth multiplied. You sink deeper beneath the blankets, imagining that long lineage of sleepers, peasants in cottages, nobles in castles, travellers in roadside inns, all relying on the same truth, all trusting the same ancient method, all waiting for the same slow, steady warmth to gather around their bodies as the cold world pressed in from every side. You are part of that tradition now. Your warmth is proof of it. The soft air inside the curtains is proof of it. Your slowing breath, your easing muscles, your heavy eyelids, all of it echoes the countless winters survived by those who came before you. There is no rush, no urgency. The heat will build as long as you rest, as long as you breathe, as long as you lie still and let warmth rise the way it always has. Quietly, patiently, human heat against a medieval night. And in time, just as they did, you begin to drift into the comfort of that warmth, letting it cradle you until sleep finds you. Inside the bed curtains, the world contracts into a small, sheltered chamber of your own making. The stone cold of the castle fades, not completely, but enough that it feels distant, like a memory rather than a presence. The air here is warmer, thickened by your breath, softened by wool, and held gently by the curtains that surround you. You draw the blankets closer, not because you're afraid of the cold now, but because this is what medieval people did every night. This is what thousands of sleepers felt before you, lying in chambers just like this, listening to the fire dim the same way you do now. The final crackles from the hearth drift into the stillness, a soft hiss as a log collapses inward, releasing a last curl of warmth. You hear it, but barely notice. The sound is distant, muffled by the layers around you, fading like a dream that slips away just as you try to remember it. Your eyelids grow heavier, not suddenly, but gradually, patiently, the way medieval sleep always came. Not pushed, not rushed, just allowed. People of the Middle Ages never expected perfect comfort at night. They didn't expect warmth, or softness, or the luxury of undisturbed rest. What they expected, what they trusted, was weight. The weight of blankets, the weight of darkness, the weight of time passing slowly in rooms made of stone. And now you feel that same weight settling over you. In medieval castles, nighttime was not simply a pause between days. It was a presence, a long, deep quiet that stretched through narrow halls and winding staircases, surrounding every sleeper with layers of darkness untouched by the modern world. There were no glowing embers of lamps outside your curtains, no streetlights beyond windows, no hum of distant roads or machinery. Night was complete, and it soothed you in ways nothing else could. You exhale, and your breath warms the tiny pocket of air around your face. It rises gently, disappearing into the space above you. In the Middle Ages, this warmth was precious, the most reliable heat anyone could generate. Your breath, slow and steady, is the same rhythm that kept countless medieval sleepers comfortable through long winter nights. Within your small sheltered space, you can almost feel how they lived it. Nobles curling beneath layers of wool and fur, servants wrapped in cloaks they never removed, children pressed close to siblings, travelling pilgrims resting on straw pallets near castle kitchens for a bit of borrowed warmth, guards dozing near stairwells, cloaks pulled over their heads. Every sleeper in the castle fought the same enemy, cold, relentless, persistent, indifferent, and every sleeper relied on the same solution: stillness, because warmth was not created through movement, but through waiting, through being still long enough for your body to warm the air closest to your skin. Now, lying here, you feel the truth of that. The cold no longer bites at you. It lingers outside your curtains like a respectful guest who knows not to intrude. Your thoughts begin to soften. No urgency, no tasks, just the slow melting feeling that medieval people knew so well, drifting into sleep led only by the body's natural need for rest. You imagine the room outside your bed curtains, the stone walls holding the silence like a bowl, the hearth now reduced to a deep orange glow, drafts moving through the cracks, but too gentle to reach you, shadows stretching long across the floor. Everything's still, everything's suspended. This is the kind of quiet medieval families experienced, not silence as emptiness, but silence as a soft blanket stretched across the world. You breathe in again, and for a moment, you feel what they felt. A rare sense of safety inside a fortified castle. Not absolute warmth, but enough warmth. Not perfect comfort, but enough comfort. Not certainty, but peace. Outside your curtains, the world becomes irrelevant. Cold remains beyond reach. The castle, the night, the fire, all settle into their own places, leaving you with only this warm, breath-softened shelter. You feel your heartbeat slow, your muscles loosen, your thoughts drift like falling snowflakes, lighter and lighter, until each one dissolves as soon as it forms. You lie there, wrapped in wool and quiet, wrapped in the same stillness medieval people relied on to make it through the longest winters, wrapped in a sense of time that stretches outward, unhurried, patient, safe, and slowly, gently, you let yourself fall into the kind of sleep they once knew. A medieval sleep, a winter sleep, a deep, slow, peaceful descent into rest, long before alarms, long before electric lights and rigid schedules. People in medieval castles slept in a rhythm that matched the winter itself, slow, gentle, unhurried. You feel that rhythm settling into your own body now, as the warmth inside your bed curtains deepens, and your awareness softens into something quieter, something older. In the Middle Ages, sleep was rarely one long stretch. It came in two distinct phases, a pattern so natural that most people never questioned it. They called the first part of the night first sleep. This was the deep, heavy rest that arrived soon after darkness fell, the kind that carried away the exhaustion of a long day. You feel a version of that now, the first wave of heaviness draping itself gently over your shoulders. But medieval nights were long, very long, especially in winter. So after a few hours of this first sleep, something very ordinary happened. People woke up, not abruptly, not anxiously, just quietly. A soft rise to the surface, like drifting up through layers of warm water. They didn't panic or wonder why they were awake. This in-between time was expected, even welcomed. A moment of calm built directly into the architecture of the night. You feel that same softness now, the sense that waking or drifting is not a mistake, but part of the rhythm. During this quiet period between sleeps, medieval people did simple, peaceful things. They whispered small prayers. They adjusted blankets or tucked children closer. They tended the fire, stirred the embers, or added a log so the room would not freeze. They sat in silence beneath the soft glow of a candle. Some talked in hushed voices or simply stared at the ceiling, letting their bodies rest without pressure to fall asleep immediately. It was a natural pause, a gentle intermission woven into the night. Historians call it the watch, and it was a normal part of medieval life. A time when the mind wandered easily and the body stayed warm beneath layers of wool. No urgency, no expectation, just being. You can almost imagine yourself there now, sitting up briefly in the glow of your faint embers, adjusting your blankets, listening to the castle breathe around you, the wind outside, the faint settling of stone, the the distant steps of a guard making his slow rounds. Nothing demands your attention. Nothing disrupts you. This middle waking period wasn't seen as insomnia. It was simply what nights were. People accepted it. They moved with the rhythm instead of resisting it. And after a little while, 20 minutes or 40 or maybe longer, second sleep would slowly reclaim them. A deeper, more dream-filled rest. A settling of the body into true night. The kind of sleep that feels like drifting down into warm water again, sinking deeper and deeper into softness. You feel that pull now, that ancient, instinctive descent. The second half of the night calling you gently, quietly. Your blankets grow warmer, your breath lengthens. Your body grows heavier in the most comforting way, just like the people who slept in these castles centuries ago. You allow sleep to come, not in one single stretch, but in waves, soft, natural, and unforced. This is how humans were meant to rest. This is how medieval nights unfolded, and how yours unfolds now, slowly, patiently, peacefully. The world outside fades, the castle grows still, your breathing deepens, and you slip gently into your own second sleep, letting the night continue without needing to watch it. Morning in a medieval castle does not arrive all at once. It doesn't burst through curtains or break open loudly. It comes the way winter light always comes, slowly, carefully, like a hand brushing softly across your cheek. You feel it before you see it. A faint coolness in the air changes. Deep night, giving just a little space to something softer. Then, gradually, a pale blue glow begins to gather along the frost that clings to the edges of your small window. A delicate shimmer, too faint to warm anything, but enough to remind you that time is still moving. You keep your eyes half closed. You don't need to rise yet. The bed curtains hold your warmth as if protecting you from the world outside. The blankets have grown warm through the night. Your wool tunic, your socks, the soft sheepskin beneath you, all of it forming a small world inside the larger, colder stone around you. For a long moment, you simply breathe, slow and steady, letting the warmth settle deeper into your limbs. Outside the bed curtains, the castle begins its morning in quiet layers. You survived the coldest hours, the long stretch of the night when fires fade, when stone releases all its stored chill, when even the breath inside the bed curtains feels thinner. If someone in a castle could make it to dawn, they could make it through anything. You breathe slowly, deeply. You're still wrapped in layers. Your under tunics, the thick wool blanket, the outer coverlet that once belonged to a noble ancestor who slept through winters much like this one. The smell of the blankets, lanolin, wool, hearth smoke, is oddly comforting. Morning light reaches a little farther now. It touches the frost on the inside of the window shutter, turning it pale gold for a moment before it shifts back to blue. You can see just enough to make out the edges of your wooden chest, the stone floor beneath it. The room still looks cold, but now it looks survivable. Castles never truly warmed in winter, even at midday. Stone held cold the way water holds depth, and winter mornings were the hardest of all. Before servants had stirred up fires, before torches had been relit, before bodies moving through the halls began to push away the night. But despite all this, dawn in a medieval castle carried its own quiet beauty. The air had a purity to it, sharp and clean. The chill felt ancient, like part of the castle itself, a presence that lived behind the stone walls and whispered through arrow loops. You shift slightly, your mattress rustling beneath you. Straw mattresses weren't luxurious, but they insulated you from the cold stone floor. The straw inside holds a little warmth, a little softness. You feel the familiar unevenness beneath your shoulder blade, a reminder of the real world waiting outside your blankets. But you don't rise. Medieval mornings were slow, especially in winter. People woke gradually, letting their bodies adjust, conserving their strength. A wooden bucket being set down somewhere in the corridor. The hiss of a torch being relit. A quiet cough from someone in the servants' quarters. The distant bleating of animals waking in the outer bailey. The rustle of someone shaking out woolen garments for the day. These sounds are soft, rhythmic, ordinary, but together they form the morning heartbeat of the castle. Soon the great hall will come to life. Servants will carry in kindling, nobles will complain about draughts, and warm porridge will be ladled into wooden bowls. The smell of smoke and hot grain will drift upward. Footsteps will grow louder. Voices will fill the echoing stone. But for now, this moment belongs to you alone. People ease themselves into waking, conserving precious energy. They move slowly from sleep to sitting, from sitting to dressing, from dressing to stepping out into the wider cold. Down in the great hall, the first servants have already begun their work. You hear the soft scrape of iron as yesterday's ashes are pulled from the hearth. A slow, practiced movement. Then the faint thump of kindling being set in place. These early moments decide whether the hall stays freezing or whether a little warmth will survive the day. You stay wrapped in your blankets, listening as life begins to stir. Somewhere further below, you hear another morning ritual. The heavy splash of water into wooden basins as servants haul buckets from the well. Cold water is part of the castle's daily reality. Not a shock, but a constant. You imagine them starting the routine you've seen so many times. Layering wool tunics, pulling thick hose up their legs, rolling cloaks around their shoulders. Preparing themselves not for comfort, but for endurance. You shift slightly in your bed, feeling how the warmth you created overnight still clings to the air inside the curtains. Outside them, you can see your breath faintly drifting as you exhale. The castle's stone walls drink in heat and refuse to give it back. That is why mornings demand preparation. Servants relight every hearth they can reach, feeding fires from the kitchen to the guest chambers, though few rooms ever grow truly warm. Families relayer clothing, pulling on wool garments, cloaks, and padded undertunics before stepping out into the corridors. Heavy tapestries hung along the walls, some embroidered with stories of hunts or battles, catch whatever early warmth the hearths release, helping insulate the cold stone behind them. And throughout the morning, residents quietly adapt themselves to the cold. No rushing, no complaining. Just a patient, familiar rhythm. You breathe slowly as you watch the faint light creep further across your chamber wall. This is how people survived winter in castles, not by defeating the cold, but by learning to live with it. They understood the building, the drafts, the way the wind moved through arrow loops and under doors. They understood which walls stayed coldest and which places near the hearth gave just enough warmth to rest your hands. They knew when to gather, when to be still, when to cover the fire gently so it would last until morning. And night after night, winter after winter, they repeated the ritual. Find warmth, Keep it, share it, protect it, and wait for dawn to come. You sit quietly in your bed now, wrapped in blankets, feeling that ancient rhythm settling into you too. The cold is still there. The castle is still vast, still echoing, still heavy with stone and frost. But you have warmth, you have layers, breath, stillness, and the knowledge that people before you survived the same cold with nothing more than these simple tools. And so will you. The day begins beyond your walls, but your own pace remains slow, peaceful, unhurried. The cold cannot rush you. Nothing is required of you yet. You breathe, long and soft, feeling your body grounded, steady, safe. The fire has not gone out. Your warmth has not left you, and the longest hours are already behind you. You can rest now. You can drift gently into the soft, ancient quiet of a medieval morning. The world will wait. The cold can wait. Sleep can take you peacefully. You are warm. You are safe. The night has passed, and the fire still burns. Good night.